I never liked those dinners. Instead, I watched her from the corner of my eye, how she leaned against the window like she wanted to melt into it, how her phone never left her hand even though she never unlocked it. And I realized something. There are moments in your life when clarity hits not like lightning, but like a slow, rising tide. You don't panic. You don't flinch. You just understand. She wanted freedom. She was already gone. Maybe emotionally, maybe physically, maybe in some messy, overlapping space I hadn't fully recognized until now. But she was no longer mine. I didn't know the full story yet. Didn't know how deep it went or how long it had been going on. But I knew enough. Enough to stop trying to fix what she was quietly dismantling behind the scenes. That night, when we got home, she went straight to the guest room. She'd been needing space lately, claimed she slept better alone, that she was having trouble adjusting to our mattress. I used to believe her. I really did. Now I knew better. I stayed up, sitting in the living room in the dark, watching the ice melt in my glass. I listened to the silence, the real kind, not just the absence of noise. The kind that seeps into a home when trust has left it. She had already made her choice, and I was done pretending I hadn't seen it. The thing about hindsight is it doesn't whisper. It screams. That night, after Julie went to sleep in the guest room, again, I sat on the edge of our bed and started putting together pieces I'd once brushed off. It wasn't just Mason's text anymore. It was everything. A whole series of quiet changes I hadn't wanted to see for what they really were. It was in the way she stopped laughing at my jokes. Not the big ones, those are easy to notice. I mean the small, inside ones. The ones we used to share on autopilot. I'd say something random, and she'd look at me, roll her eyes, and smirk. That smirk vanished months ago, and when I asked her about it once, she said she was just tired. Always tired. It was in how she stopped asking about my day. She used to check in even when she was busy. How'd the meeting go? Or, did your manager finally admit he's wrong about the Jenkins account? Little things. They faded gradually until they just weren't there. And then there were the clothes. Julie used to live in soft sweaters and jeans at home, comfortable, warm, hers. Lately, it was blouses and form-fitting skirts, even on days she worked remotely. At first, I chalked it up to confidence. Maybe she just wanted to feel good about herself. Nothing wrong with that. But the switch didn't feel like confidence, it felt like a costume. Like she was dressing for someone who wasn't me. There was a new perfume, too. Musky, unfamiliar. I noticed it the first time she hugged me before heading out for one of her supposed team dinners. She used to spritz lavender. This was different, bolder, like she wanted to be noticed. And then the sleeping arrangements changed. First, it was a migraine. Then a project she had to stay up late to finish. Then it just became habit. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, reach out, and touch nothing but cold sheets. Some nights I'd find the guest room door cracked open, the light from her phone illuminating her face. She'd be sitting on the floor, back against the wall, locked into whatever she was reading. When I entered once, she flinched, locked the screen instantly, and gave a half laugh. "Work drama," she said, just like in the car earlier. Always that phrase. I played along, but inside, something gnawed. One night, I found her standing in front of the mirror in our bedroom. She didn't notice I was there. She was practicing a smile. Not just checking makeup or straightening her collar. She was rehearsing, holding her phone, angling it, adjusting the lighting. And when she caught my reflection behind her, she jumped like I was a stranger who'd crept into the house. That smile disappeared in an instant. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," she said, brushing past me. "Just checking my posture." Posture. I wanted to believe her, desperately. But that's the thing about love. It dulls your instincts. It makes you hopeful in places where you should be careful. There was a night mid-October. I remember it clearly. She said she had a team dinner downtown. I thought I'd surprise her. I bought flowers. Nothing big. Just a bouquet of those purple tulips she loved. I showed up at the restaurant she'd mentioned, nervous like it was our first date again. The hostess smiled politely but shook her head. "Sorry. No reservation under that name." I double-checked the name, the place, the time. All matched. But she wasn't there. No team. No Julie. I waited outside for a while, thinking maybe they were late or had moved locations. I texted her, "Hope dinner's going well." And she replied 5 minutes later with, "It is. Just got appetizers." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I went home, flowers still in hand. Didn't say a word. Didn't ask. I wanted so badly to believe I had misunderstood something. Another night, I got up at 2:07 a.m. I remember the time because I looked at the clock. Couldn't sleep. I walked into the bathroom and found the light on. The door wasn't fully closed. Inside, she was sitting on the edge of the tub, phone in both hands, typing with this intensity one hadn't seen in a long time. Her lips were moving silently, like she was reading something out loud before sending it. She didn't hear me. I stood there, behind the door, unsure if I should interrupt. And I didn't. I went back to bed. That's what hurts the most, looking back. Not the lying, not even the betrayal. That's how I let it happen. How I watched it unfold in slow motion and still convinced myself that everything was fine. She started talking about independence more. Not in a combative way. Just philosophical. Over wine while watching documentaries, even in casual conversations. She once said, "Sometimes I think people just make each other small without realizing it." I didn't know what to say. Was that about me? Was I making her small? She began spending more weekends out. Catching up with Lauren, brunch with her old roommate, solo walks at the park to clear her head. Each time, her eyes darted when I asked basic questions. She'd blink slower, smile tighter, and every time she walked out that door, I felt like I was watching something valuable slip further and further away. I tried to fix it. I suggested a weekend trip, just the two of us. She hesitated, then said she was too busy. I offered to come to her office after hours one night with dinner. She said she'd be in meetings late, nothing to see. The int asterisk Macy faded long before the argument started. There was a distance between us that you couldn't measure in square feet. It was deeper, like I was living beside a stranger who had my wife's face. She'd started changing passwords, too. Subtle ones, streaming apps, food delivery accounts. She said they'd expired or got weird security notifications. But why not just update them together like we always had? Why lock me out of small things, unless she was testing how much separation she could create without me noticing? I kept asking myself if I was being paranoid. That word haunted me, paranoid. But paranoia only exists when you imagine things that aren't real. What I was seeing wasn't imagined. It was there every day. I just hadn't allowed myself to name it. Until now. That night, after we got home from her parents' place, I didn't speak. I just sat in the living room with a notepad in my lap, writing down everything I could remember. Every off glance. Every canceled plan. Every cold touch. Not to obsess, just to face it. To stop telling myself that maybe I was the one creating the distance. Because the truth is, she had already left me. Not physically, not yet. But emotionally, she was long gone. It was a Wednesday morning when Julie told me about the Wilmington trip. I was making coffee, black like always, and she was leaning against the kitchen counter, stirring oat milk into hers with the kind of calm that felt forced. She said her team had scheduled a last-minute 2-day leadership retreat. Something about team alignment, vision setting, a bunch of HR buzzwords she rattled off like she was reading from a memo. "I'll be back Friday night," she said. "Don't wait up." Then she kissed my cheek. Soft, quick, meaningless. I nodded, didn't push. I just watched her pack later that night. 3 outfits for 2 days, one of them a dress I hadn't seen before. It was low-cut, satin, dark blue, the kind of thing you wear to be remembered, not to brainstorm sales projections. "Wi-Fi's supposed to be spotty," she added as she zipped her suitcase. "So don't panic if I go dark for a bit." I smiled, held her gaze a moment longer than I needed to. "I trust you," I said, and that was true. Not because she'd earned it, but because I wanted to believe trust could bring her back. That if I just stayed calm, normal, maybe she'd realize something worth staying for still existed here. But the truth had already arrived. I just hadn't opened the door yet. The next day, around noon, I was cleaning out the glove compartment in my car. Something to K***LL time, to distract myself from the way the house felt different without her in it, when I found the old tracking fob for her SUV. It was a leftover from when we first bought the car. I'd set up an app so we could keep tabs on each other during road trips, or in case of emergencies. We both laughed about it back then. "We're so codependent," she used to joke, but she never deleted it from her profile. When I opened the app, I didn't expect anything. Maybe a ping from a conference center in Wilmington, a business hotel, a boardroom, something that aligned with the story. Instead, I saw coordinates that led somewhere else entirely. A house. Not in Wilmington. Not even close. A beach town about 2 hours from there, tucked along the coast. The icon on the map hovered above a quiet neighborhood just off the water, surrounded by dune grass and rental cottages. I tapped on it. The vehicle hadn't moved in hours. She was parked there, and she wasn't alone. I don't remember making the decision to go. I just moved, threw on a jacket, grabbed my keys, and left the house in silence. I didn't even lock the front door. My body worked on autopilot, like it already knew what I was going to find and was just preparing my mind to catch up. The drive blurred past. Interstate signs, gas stations, fields, trees, gone in a flash. I barely blinked. The deeper I got from the city, the more hollow I felt. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I wasn't even heartbroken. I was suspended, floating somewhere between hope and the slow unraveling of reality. I parked about a block away from the pin on the map, behind a row of hedges that faced the ocean. The house she was in sat at the edge of the street, pale blue siding, white railings, floor-to-ceiling windows that looked like they belonged in a catalog. There was music playing softly, jazz maybe, and candlelight flickering behind the glass. I walked closer. It felt like a dream, like one of those moments where you watch yourself from outside your body, telling yourself this can't be real. You'll wake up any second. You'll laugh about it with her later, over dinner, maybe tell her what a ridiculous nightmare your brain cooked up. But I didn't wake up, because I saw them. Inside the living room, Julie was on the couch, barefoot, curled into the corner with a glass of wine in her hand, laughing, really laughing, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard in months. And Mason was next to her. I didn't need a name tag. I didn't need to read his texts or hear his voice. I knew. It was the way they looked at each other, the way his knee brushed hers, the way he reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear like he'd done it a dozen times before. On the table between them were plates of half-eaten food, charcuterie, some kind of roasted fish, wine glasses. Romantic. Mate. Deliberate. There was no whiteboard, no spreadsheets, no colleagues. This wasn't a retreat. It was a vacation, a secret chapter written behind my back. I stood there for a long time, watching, studying, letting it etch itself into memory so I'd never second-guess what I saw. And then I took out my phone. One photo. That's all I needed. No confrontation, no drama, just the truth frozen in time. I turned around and walked back to the car. My chest felt hollow, like someone had carved me out from the inside and left just enough to keep me moving. On the way home, I didn't turn on the radio, didn't make a call, didn't cry. The silence was louder than anything. When I pulled into the driveway, it was dark. Street lamps cast long shadows across the porch. The house looked different now, like it was already someone else's. I walked up to the front door and paused. Then I changed the code. Not out of spite, not even anger, but because I finally understood something. Julie didn't just want space. She wanted a world where she didn't have to answer to me, and I was going to give it to her. Fully, cleanly, quietly. I spent the next few hours gathering what she would need to know I knew. Bank statements, credit card charges from boutiques in towns she never told me she visited, receipts from restaurants she'd never mentioned, dates that overlapped with late nights at the office. I printed them all, labeled everything, even the photo from the beach house. No notes, no sarcasm, just evidence. I put them in an envelope and placed it on the porch bench, right under the light. Then I packed. Not everything, just enough. my clothes, my tools, the photo of my father I kept in my nightstand, the mug Julie bought me on our first anniversary. World's okayest husband. I left that behind. Before I walked out the door, I looked around one last time. The couch where we used to fall asleep watching Netflix. The hallway where she'd once danced barefoot on New Year's Eve. The fridge with the grocery list magnet we hadn't used in months. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel broken. I felt done. And that, more than anything, was what she gave me that night. Closure. Julie returned Thursday evening, just after 9. I knew the time because the porch light flicked on when her motion triggered the sensor. I wasn't there to see it. I'd been gone for hours by then, but I imagined the way her shadow would have stretched across the walkway, suitcase wheels humming softly against the concrete. She probably expected to unlock the door and smell dinner or hear music playing from the living room speaker. Maybe she imagined I'd be in the kitchen, acting as if nothing had changed, because that's what I'd always done. Except this time, when she pressed her key into the lock, it didn't turn. She tried again, slower, more deliberate. Nothing. The porch camera caught it all. Her pausing, looking down at the knob like it was malfunctioning, tapping it with her fingers. And then the moment it registered, somewhere between confusion and disbelief, her world didn't break all at once. Cracked in layers. First came the envelope. I'd left it centered on the bench. Inside, everything sat neatly stacked. Bank statements, receipts, dates highlighted in yellow, screensh asterisk TS of credit card charges from towns she never mentioned visiting. Tucked in between them, the photo from the beach house. Her, with a glass of wine in her hand. Mason, reaching for her hand across the table. Neither of them aware of the world outside that glass window. There was no letter. No, I know what you did, or we need to talk. Just facts. And silence. She stood there for 15 minutes. The camera footage showed her pacing the porch, phone in hand, probably debating whether to call me or her best friend or maybe no one at all. She tried the code again. Tried knocking once, like maybe I'd been asleep on the couch and somehow missed the first 10 minutes of her trying to enter the house she no longer had access to. Eventually, she sat on the steps. She didn't cry. Not yet. She just looked. Still. Hollow. When she finally left, she left slowly. No dramatic exit. No shouting or slamming or thrown luggage. She just wheeled her suitcase down the driveway, past the garbage bins and the mailbox with our last name still painted on the side. She didn't look back. And inside, the house was clean. Empty but not messy. I had removed what mattered. My clothes, my laptop, my toolbox, the vinyl records she hated but I loved, and every single trace of my daily presence. My shoes weren't by the door. My razor wasn't on the bathroom sink. The water bottle I kept by the bed was gone. Even the charger on my nightstand had been unplugged and taken with me. I left her space, literal and metaphorical, a vacuum where our life had once lived. When I turned off my phone that night, I knew she'd start trying to reach me, and she did. I didn't listen to the voicemails, but I saw them come through, one after another. The first one came within the hour. "Clark, what is this? Can we talk?" Then another, "Please, I need to understand what's happening." And then more urgent ones, as the silence stretched. "You can't just shut me out like this." Followed by, "Where are you?" Her calls were relentless for 2 days. Then they slowed. By the weekend, she had called my brother. I know because he texted me, "She's trying to reach you. Want me to say anything?" I told him no. He didn't ask questions. She reached out to a couple of our mutual friends. Claimed she was blindsided. Said I'd left without warning. That she came home from a business trip and found herself locked out like a criminal. One of them, Melissa, sent me a message. Just 3 words. "I'm sorry, Clark." Julie must have sensed she was losing control of the story. That's when the tone shifted. The voicemails changed from confusion to regret. Long, emotional ones. Her voice cracking mid-sentence. I didn't listen past the first few seconds, but I saw the transcripts. "You were right. I should have told you sooner. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I made a mistake. I don't know why I did what I did. Please talk to me. We were more than this. Weren't we?" I didn't answer. She came to my office. Or tried to. My boss told me later that she stood in the lobby for almost an hour, asking if I was around. But I'd already filed for unpaid leave that morning. I needed space too. What she didn't know was that I'd been planning this for a while. The beach house confirmed what I already suspected. But emotionally, I'd been leaving long before the photo. When someone you love begins to disappear from a shared life, they don't do it loudly. They slip through the cracks. One dinner at a time. One phone call unanswered. One laugh that no longer finds its way to you. Julie vanished from our relationship before she ever physically stepped out of it. I was just the last one to accept it. After a few days of no response, she sent a letter, handwritten. The same handwriting she used on sticky notes she used to leave in my lunchbox during our first year together. Started with my name, underlined twice. She wrote, "You don't have to forgive me, but please don't shut me out like this. I don't want to lose you completely. We can work through this. I'm willing to do the work, I swear. Just say something. Anything." It was 4 pages long. I read all of it. Once. Then I folded it, placed it back in the envelope and filed it away. Not out of bitterness. Just so I'd remember what silence finally cost her. I didn't owe her a reply. She had been sending her answers through her actions for months. I was just echoing her language back to her. I found a new place. Small. Quiet. Near a park. I slept better in the first week there than I had in the last year of our marriage. No more guessing what time she'd come home. No more pretending not to notice the text messages she shielded from view. No more wondering if I was imagining things. The peace was loud in its own way. The first week after she returned, I expected she'd show up in person. Try the dramatic apology. Cry on the doorstep. But she didn't. Maybe because the truth of what she'd done finally outweighed the performance of justifying it. Or maybe because she knew I wouldn't open the door. A few days later, the envelope I left on the porch disappeared. She must have come by when I wasn't home. The camera didn't catch it. But when I checked the bench, it was gone. That was enough. The message had been delivered. Not through anger. Not through screaming or slamming doors. But through the kind of stillness that forces a person to look at their reflection and realize the damage they've done in pursuit of freedom they never fully understood. She wanted independence. Now she had it. But freedom without trust is just isolation. And by the time she realized that, I was already gone. First, she tried to spin it. When the silence stretched past a week, Julie stopped reaching out to me and started reaching out to anyone who might still listen. She called my brother again. Left voicemails for old friends. Even texted my mother, which she hadn't done since the Christmas dinner where she argued about politics at the table and left early. She's confused. My mom told me. Angry, mostly. Said you just left. No warning. I nodded. She left first, I said. I know, she replied. Julie didn't open with remorse. She opened with accusation. She told people I was irrational. That I'd gone off the deep end. She hinted at emotional instability, claimed I was controlling, paranoid about her independence. She leaned into the story that I had locked her out without a word, like I was staging some kind of domestic coup. She called it abandonment. She called it punishment. The people who knew me didn't buy it. But that didn't stop her from trying. Melissa, one of our mutual friends, texted me again. She's spiraling. I think she thought you'd scream or chase her down. But the way you just left, it's messing with her. That part didn't surprise me. Julie thrived on it. Hit me harder than I expected. Because this wasn't just paperwork. It was the moment where all of it, years of birthdays, Sunday grocery runs, inside jokes, fights, reconciliations, kisses on foreheads, coffee mugs, toothbrushes, got boxed into a line item under irreconcilable differences. And she didn't even fight it. The day the documents were filed, I took a walk by the lake. No headphones. Just air, trees, sky. I watched a couple walk past with their dog, laughing about something. He leaned into her shoulder. She bumped his hip in return. I didn't feel jealous, just nostalgic. For the version of us that once looked like that. But the thing about betrayal is it ages the whole memory. retroactively. Every happy moment becomes suspicious. Every "I love you" gets held under a microscope. Was it real then? Or was the script already forming? I didn't need the answers. I just needed peace. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could hear it again. Not perfectly, not constantly, but enough to know that I was getting close.